Okay, I think we got everyone in. Welcome, everybody. Our next presentation will be by Christina Cavage and Carla Consolini, our Curriculum and Assessment Manager and Director of Language Programs here at Immerse. And they'll be presenting on a deep dive into Immerse, aligning curricular frameworks with virtual reality lessons. So I will turn it over to y'all.
Thank you, Tricia. Thank you, everyone, for coming and have given us an opportunity to talk about the work that we do at Immerse. My name is Carla Consolini. I'm currently the Curriculum and Assessment Manager at Immerse. My background is that I'm a PhD candidate in applied linguistics with a focus on second language and teaching, second language learning and teaching and emerging technologies. And so I spent a lot of time here in the world of second language learning, teaching, and the technologies that we can use to improve that. I will let my colleague Christina present herself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Christina Cavage, the Director of Language Programs here at Immerse. Prior to joining Immerse, I spent about 32 years in higher ed, like many of you, been on faculty, director, dean, department chair, so I've worn a lot of those hats. But my passion has always been making sure that we could connect dots for learners, whether that's with content, with teaching pedagogy, all of that good stuff. So let's just jump right in. Carla, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit of how we align our curriculum frameworks to what we need in Immerse and to our lessons in Immerse. So we're going to go through our curricular frameworks, how these frameworks and VR go together, and then we're going to go over the pillars of learning for Immerse. So the curriculum in Immerse. Let's start with what it is and where it comes from. We are using frameworks from the Common European Framework of Reference. We like this because they're very structured and they are set in a good illustrative can-do statements. But we like to complement that with the global scale of languages because it has a more granular, detailed learning objectives. So, for example, in the Common European Framework of Reference, we have an example here for an A1 level that says can ask and answer questions about where they live and things they have. So this is a great starting point. But then we have a more granular, a more detailed objective in the GEC 25, which we would be at the same level as an A1. That is, can ask for and give very basic information about the home. So now we're narrowing down exactly what we're expecting. Putting this framework into practice means that we are creating lessons that are designed around communicative tasks. And these tasks lie under one of 9 different language functions. So for example, a language function that we would be using in this example we mentioned before will be called managing home and community. And under this language function, we would have the communicative goal, for example, of being able to describe rooms in a home. So how do we develop our curriculum? This is the framework in which we do it, the things that we use for guiding, but how we transform that into an actual lesson plan, a class that we can present to our learners. So we try to follow a backward design approach. We first try to come up with a final productive task that we would like our learners to be able to accomplish by themselves without any support from their guides. And based on that final productive task, we can then create the rest of our lesson around it. So for example, in this example that we're following about being able to describe rooms in a home, our final task would be that in pairs, one of the learners is a real estate agent and the other one is someone interested in buying a house. And so the real estate agent learner is going to give a quote unquote tour of the house and explaining all the rooms that are in the house, the amenities, the things that can be changed or used in the house that make it, a house that the other person would like to buy. And the other person will ask questions and they will converse around descriptions of rooms in the house. How do we get them prepared for this final task is the other core component of how we do this lesson development. So now that we have our final task, we know what we want them to be able to accomplish productively by themselves without any support. We try to find the different key components that they are going to need in their tools, in their learner tools, to be able to accomplish that task by themselves. So with this idea, we first build we try to build receptive skills, and then we bridge those to a productive task that has some guidance and some help or support by the guide or including the peers in the lesson, in the class. And that will prepare them to be able to do the final productive task by themselves and achieve that communicative goal that we were trying, that we set up as our learning goal or learning objective. So if you think about this as a set of stairs that we're trying to climb through, at the very end of our stairs, we'll be able to produce this complete communicative task. But the first steps that we need to take before we get there are to build vocabulary or key structures that may need it, activate background knowledge. And with that basis, we can then go on to do a supportive practice with more structures, vocabulary, apply them, analyze them, discuss them, give a space for the learners to have questions about this, to make mistakes, to learn what are the difficulties, what are the things that they still probably don't understand or are not completely confident about. And with that last step, they are able to then produce the complete communicative task, right? They are able to create and use language creatively by themselves. Okay, so this is really nice. We have frameworks that we use to guide us to make sure that we have a nice curriculum that is part of everything that is needed to achieve language proficiency. But how do we mesh this? How do we mix this with Immerse? How do we include this in a virtual reality environment? And we do this by leveraging the environment that we can create with VR, particularly the environment created here at Immerse, which is very rich and diverse. So some of the specific affordances that virtual reality can provide or that are beneficial for learning can be seen in examples of vocabulary learning, for example. There's an interesting amount of research that suggests that the more we can interact, not only socially, but physically with the environment, with objects, if they can be grabbed, if I can point to things in my environment that I'm learning about, and I can interact not only with other people live, but also with the objects and the situation and then the scene that I'm in, I will be able to retain novel vocabulary for longer periods of time, which in turn helps language acquisition. After repetition that we know has to be spaced and it has to be given in different contexts, in different rich environments. And this is something that is really attainable at Immerse when we have different scenes that allow us to not only target key vocabulary from those scenes, but also use vocabulary that can be repeated in these scenes in different contexts to make sure that those things are finally acquired. Another aspect that is very beneficial through the affordances of virtual reality is listening comprehension. We are able to create a space where our listening skills can be developed, not only because learners are interacting with others, but they're interacting with others live. They're able to pay attention to the information that is coming in these interactions, in these conversations. And there's a greater presence because we are actually talking to someone else and not a computer or just a chat. And this means that the learning engagement increases, right? Because all of a sudden we're actually having a conversation with another human being in an environment that gives it context, it makes it meaningful. And we know that these are really important factors for second language acquisition. We know that, of course, input is necessary. We need to receive language, but it's also very important that we use the language in meaningful ways and that we also use the language in social interaction, which is fundamentally the goal of mastering a language, being able to communicate with others and create community. Finally, the avatars are a great piece of Immerse and virtual reality. First of all, not only you can use your own meta avatars and they can be, looking like you, so you can feel represented and show up as you, but also it is being demonstrated by research that this really helps with the affective factors. It definitely lowers anxiety to be able to have a little bit of distance about the situation that we are in and how we are relating and socializing with others and how we're using language. So we may be prone to feel more confident to make more mistakes. So we're more confident to use the language. That means that we use it more, we practice more, and then we get more feedback, not only from our peers and our guides, but also from the interactions that we have, and just by monitoring ourselves, right? So as I mentioned before, social interactions are a key component of second language acquisition, of language acquisition in general. Language doesn't occur in a vacuum. It has very strong social requirements and is used for social interactions. So one of the things that we can do here in Immerse that is really great is that you're not just interacting with all the objects that you see, you're not only interacting in different environments, but you are also interacting with people. So there are actual social interactions, the likes that you would have in a classroom perhaps, or even when you're studying abroad, interactions with people like you that are looking to practice the language, to learn more about the culture, and to make connections, make community about language, around language learning. This is what we call virtual exchanges, right? Being able to exchange virtually different key components of our culture, of someone else's culture, get immersed in the culture of the language that we're learning, participate, share, find different points of view from people that use the language that you're learning, or is learning the language that you're learning as well. And then finally, it's a great environment to practice some key pragmatic elements of communication in general. If we are in a restaurant, or if we're in a different scene in our home with our roommates, if we have different things that we can manipulate when we're making conversation that we can point to, all of these are contextual cues that are absolutely being part of our communication and the way that we use language. And so the embodiment of being able to not only interact, like I said before, with the environment and objects, but to have that social interaction mix with all of these things help us also contextualize the learning and provide pragmatic instruction as well.
So that's pretty much our journey through the frameworks of that we use for our curriculum development and how we leverage the immersive virtual reality of Immerse for that. And now I'm going to pass it to Christina. She's going to talk to us about the pillars in Immerse.
Okay, great. Thank you, Carla. It's always good to hear that refresher of that backward design approach to curriculum, which I'm, such an advocate for. And it kind of ties exactly into our pillars in Immerse. So, we understand that achieving fluency in language goes far beyond the physical, or even in our case, the virtual walls of a classroom, right? And that's why we've built the language experience at Immerse around these 4 key pillars. Okay, we're going to see what those are in a second. And while there is a lot of strength in each of these individual pillars, it's really their connectedness that helps in developing and supporting that full language learning experience. And as I said in the beginning, being at a college campus for so many years, we know that being in that classroom, just that classroom space, is not enough for our students to become fluent language users, right? And so we need to go beyond those walls. And that's where learn, connect, practice, and play come into play here at Immerse. So let's just go through and unpack each of these. Okay, so our first pillar is learn. And learn involves our instructor-led classes. As Carla described, and when she was describing the curriculum, she's really all about those instructor-led classes. They're all built around a singular communicative task, as she shared. And because in the end, communication and real communication is our goal here at Immerse. So these lessons are essentially 50 minutes. So think about this. 40 minutes are led by a guide. And I just want you to note that our guides are all real people, right? And not only are they real people, but they hold master's degrees or doctorate degrees in language. So they're all language professionals. So you have 40 minutes that are guide led. And we strategically say guide as opposed to teacher, right? Because we are guiding students, guiding learners through this experience, okay? Through the scene, through the picking up, through the interaction of objects. And then the last 10 minutes is what we call peer-led, meaning that the students or the learners here, the members of the class, can remain in that space after, and they're given an extension activity by the guide, but they don't necessarily have to follow that extension activity, but they get to remain in that space. And this is really important. And, you know, take a minute and think about our traditional classrooms, right? Think about the value of students lingering in those classroom spaces or around those classroom spaces together after the class. And if we really think about that, we know that learning is continuing. Learning is still happening, and it's being applied to these new contexts, right? And, you know, we have seen how our lessons are aligned to the Common European Framework of Reference as well as the global scale of language. We've seen how they've been scaffolded, and they're really thoughtfully scaffolded to foster, build, and sustain that mastery of a very particular communicative skill. And we break down that content into really small, manageable chunks, as Carla indicated, moving from reception to production, from more controlled practice to independent practice. And I'm going to show you a short clip here. Hopefully it will play. This is a short clip of a lesson. And in this lesson, it's just a real quick clip of the guide setting up a scenario for the students to practice, and they happen to be in the restaurant, so they're going to be practicing ordering. But you're going to see she's going to set it up, but she's going to step back and take for a minute, just think about the learning that's happening by those students interacting together.
Work with Chisato. The customer has to sit down like this here on a table, okay? Any table. And the waiter or the waitress has to stand up and ask, what do you want? What would you like? And stuff. Remember that you have to ask and express preference. It's very important that I hear that, okay? And I am going to give you 3 minutes for this exercise, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You can start talking to each other. Please remember, choose who's going to be the waiter and who's going to be the customer right now.
Tomoki-san, Thank you.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, can I be a customer?
Sure. So please have a seat.
Yep, but I don't know how to sit down.
I can see some mark.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay,
now.
yeah, I can see you. Okay, welcome to the restaurant.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. We have so many dessert. So we have pudding or cream parfait, fromage. Which one do you like? Do you have any preference?
Yeah. Do you have a strawberry cake?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we've just got yesterday.
Oh, yesterday, very recently. That's so nice.
Do you prefer it? Do you prefer that one?
But what happened there was the learners are actually negotiating language themselves, and just a lot of learning going on. So that's our first pillar. That's our learn pillar. Next, we have connect. Okay, so connect is our second pillar. You've heard, if you've been with us since the start of the conference, that language at Immerse, language learning at Immerse is all about the human connection, right? And that's what really happens in these conversation groups. You know, language learning in a classroom situation is very neat and it's very organized and very packaged, right? But sometimes real life language is not so neat, not so organized, not so packaged. And that's what the conversation groups afford our learners to do. So they are very spontaneous conversations. They're built around a theme, but conversation tends to be more impromptu, kind of like when you're at a party. And just like when you're at a party, you may see people come in and come out. And what happens during that party scenario, right? You know, you see new friends come in, you have a little conversation, they go out, other new friends come in, and those conversations take place, and they may even get expanded upon. And so this whole drop in, drop out scenario works for a lot of our students here because they get that opportunity to practice that somewhat messy conversation in a very safe space that's very engaging. Like I said, these are built around a central topic. Sometimes the topic is functional, like our lessons, but many times as well, the topics are cultural. So not only are they have the opportunity to learn those structures and the vocabulary, but they have the opportunity to learn the nuances in which they exist in that environment. It's a bit of trial and error with new language because we get a mix of levels in the conversation group. So very much like real life, okay? Classroom on a campus, very neat, very organized. Our students go off campus or go to the dining halls, and it becomes a little more trial and error with their language. So connect, that is our second pillar there. Now, our third pillar is practice. Practice involves our AI-powered avatar scenes, our role plays here. And remember, these pillars work together. So one does not take the place of another. So I know, there are many apps out there, right, where you can just practice with AI powered, but we recognize the humanness and the need for humanness in language instruction. But AI can support what we're doing, and that's exactly the role of these AI-powered role plays in Immerse. So we're not replacing that real language instruction, but we're offering an option for learners to practice. So, I love for our learners to go in there and practice one of these before they come to a class, or better yet, they practice after a class. So they can use these AI-powered avatars for self-assessment. So critical. And what's even more fun for them is that they can go in on their own in a private space to practice. So imagine a really, really reluctant foundational learner, true beginner. They want to build their confidence. They can go in that space alone, or they can go in that space with a select group of friends, a select group of people. Or they can go into an open common space where they may bump into new friends. So lots of options, and we're all different kinds of language learners. So I think these spaces really afford themselves to these different kinds of styles of learning. They're also available 24/7, and they are tied very closely to our curriculum in the sense that here is a task all about family. We have many lessons where they're learning about asking questions about family using things like, do you have? Okay, and how many? So then they can go and practice in this avatar scene. So that is our third pillar. And our fourth pillar here is play, because, what is language without a little bit of fun, right? So play includes games in this common space that really allow learners to develop and reinforce vocabulary skills. For many of us who are language educators, we know vocabulary is pretty much drill and kill, right? And a great way to learn that vocabulary, learn just that route memorization piece is maybe to play a little game. These games can be played together as well, so there can be a little challenge, a little competition. These are in public spaces. They are available 24/7 to our learners. So, again, this is our fourth pillar. So let's just do a little recap of all our pillars here. We have learn. Those are our instructor-led classes. They're done synchronously. Our connect. These are also instructor-led, right? Again, synchronously. Practice. Those are the AI-powered role plays. And play. This is where we have learning games. So I want you to think about this kind of as a journey. So learning is not a solitary trek, right? We can't just go to one classroom space and become fluent users of the language, but it's really an exciting expedition. Imagine our first pillar, learn, as your map, and then connect as your compass, and then the practice as your training ground where you get to try it all out. Play as your fuel for discovery. So each of these pillars empowers learners on their own unique journey towards developing their fluent and proficient language skills. So again, as a language educator for 32 years, we can't have one of these, right? They all come into play. So those are our pillars. And I think now I'm spot on for time with questions.
Frederick would like to know, Christina, how would this work in a college setting?
Great question, Frederick. And actually tomorrow there's a session where somebody will be sharing that out. But on our college campuses, it's really very challenging to give students those experiences beyond maybe the academic skills that we're trying to build in the language program. So those everyday conversation skills that they need to be quite successful on a college campus, right? How do you negotiate with your roommates? How do you, call in an emergency or go to the health center? So working with, having your students work in Immerse, whether it's through the conversation groups or through the AI-powered avatar scenes, is what we're seeing some colleges and universities use. At UCF, they're going to be on the panel tomorrow. They actually created a conversation club. And in their conversation club, they were using Immerse as their conversation practice. So they were going into our Connect sessions, practicing conversation, as well as using a lot of the AI-powered avatar scenes. Great question. Would they be able to build something or put something together for their fellow student? Oh, well, the students don't build the environments. They're already built, but they can work together with a fellow student. So they can go into the AI-powered role plays. As an instructor, you can create a code for your students and have them go in as a class together into a specific scene to practice. But if you're speaking of some of the other VR platforms that allow you to build your own environments, no, they don't actually build their own environments. So is there a learning curve in terms of students struggling to use VR headsets Was this already an object of study? Okay, yeah, definitely on the technical end. So it does run on desktop and headset. So a lot of colleges and universities have the VR labs. So there's some, training that they can provide students there. What we did see at UCF is that they were already very comfortable with using all these kinds of emerging technologies, generally probably a little more comfortable than some of their instructors were in building these technologies. But I don't know, Carla, if you have anything else to add there.
Oh, I just wanted to add that for our foundational lessons for the members that may be new to language learning in general, but also new to the platform, we also integrate pieces that help them get used to and comfortable with the different uses of the application, of the environment, and how they can use the VR headset and the triggers in the VR headset for the different activities. So that is also a little bit integrated in different parts of our lesson planning. I don't think I've seen cases though where that hinders the learning process. It may be distracting for a minute maybe, but that's not always the case. And we're always able to, the community jumps in to help, sometimes even in the target language, and it becomes a learning opportunity as well.
I see a question about writing instruction on the horizon. If there are applications for that, because the attendee noticed some typing in the video. So I don't know if you wanted to discuss or address why we focus more on speaking.
Yeah, so we're built around, really building communication, mostly oral communication. Writing in the VR environment is a challenge. What you saw are whiteboards where the teacher or guide can put content up. But for learners to actually learn the writing process and practice that writing process in the VR environment would be, really quite a load on them in that environment. So we're really focused on those oral communication skills.
Thank you, Christina. Henry asked a question, any research study based on business professionals using VR to learn a language, or is this something that still needs to be explored? If you don't mind, I can address this
No,
question.
I'm going to say we have the perfect person here to address that.
Henry, on our website, which I will drop in the chat here, we do have all of our work by our research partners is linked in there. So you can access all their articles. And there are, I think there's 3, but maybe 2 studies that have looked at business professionals using VR to learn English as a second language. So you can definitely check those out. And we are just at time. So I will stop us there if there are no more questions coming in. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you, Christina and Carla, for that very thorough walkthrough of our curriculum and how you go through the lesson design process. We will jump back on here in just about 5 minutes for our next presentation, which will be actually a panel of 2 of our research partners presenting some work that they have recently conducted. So definitely come back for that and see you all very soon.